So good afternoon and welcome to today's event, the Environmental Innovation Forum and the 19th Surrey and White Rock Environment and Business Awards. My name is Jocelyn Young and I'm the CEO of the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, Coquitlam, Kakite, Semiahmoo, and Tsawwassen First Nations. As well, I acknowledge the Inuit and Métis Nations peoples who live and work on these territories. Everyone, please help me thank the sponsors of this event. We're going to do something fun. It's the one clap. So after I say the name, and so I'll say the category and the name, and then you have to do the one clap, and we'll see how good we are, okay? The presenting sponsor is FortisBC. Oh, good. Award sponsor, EXP Services, Inc. Community sponsors, Simon Fraser University and Civic Hotel. Media sponsor, Surrey Now Leader. And our pillar partners, Aspira Retirement Living, Cleveland Doan LLP, Focus College, Oceana Park, TBMS Warehousing, oh, we almost had it, Western Community College, and Canada's #1 group benefits plan, the Chambers of Commerce Group Insurance Plan by SNF Group Benefits. Okay, there you go, awesome. I feel like a conductor. All right, I'd also like to welcome our government representatives and special guests in the audience. We have the Mayor of Surrey herself, Brenda. She gets more than one clap. There we go. City of Surrey councillors, Linda Annis and Mike Bose. And I think Bill Lawrence from White Rock might be sneaking in somewhere. I don't have my glasses on, so maybe he's here, maybe not. Okay. Please also help me welcome our board of directors. We have our board chair, Mr. Rory Morgan of KSW Lawyers. And board director, Gurjinder Burji of Signature Real Estate Group. I gotta say it twice. Great, Gurjinder, yes. I saw her, she's over there. Sasha Ramnarine of Remedios and Company, and Louise Tremblay of Grella Community Services. Louise and I often wear the same thing, so I'm really glad you wore yellow and I wore blue today. Okay. We also have some friends from the Cloverdale Chamber of Commerce, President Jen Temple over here, and Director Marty Jones. So the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade is an independent nonprofit organization and concierge of connections for Surrey and White Rock's business communities, where we deliver a diversified service portfolio of business development, support for international trade, government advocacy, and workforce development. We support business and attract business, which is now more vital than ever before. We're all about helping businesses grow, be their best selves, and succeed in our communities, whether that is connecting people, offering resources, or pushing for policies that support local businesses. We're here to make sure Surrey and White Rock continue to thrive. We're proud to be a voice for businesses of all sizes from all sectors, bringing energy and innovation to the region. The Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade's environment team is made up of volunteers who help inform our policies and provide feedback on educational programs, while promoting the development of green initiatives and a sustainable future. I want to thank our policy team for giving their time and energy to this important work. And can I get a round of applause for these wonderful volunteers? Thank you. I'd also like to recognize the environment team chair, Mr. Jay Rao, who represents us on the National Zero Waste Council, which is a leadership initiative of Metro Vancouver, bringing together organizations to advance waste prevention and the circular economy in Canada. Jay, stand up. You've done a lot of work for us over the years. One of our selfless volunteers. All right, so I know we're here to learn and to celebrate, but I'm also hoping you can help us gather some data. The Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade has partnered with Metro Vancouver to help gather input on their solid waste management plan and how we as a region manage garbage, recycling, and organic waste. Really exciting stuff, I know, but your input is important, and I hope you'll take a few moments to use the QR code at your table, and we have it on screen. Your feedback will help shape the plan, And you can also chat with Amin Parmer, our policy and media lead, who's here and can help you with the survey after the event. All right. Ask any staff that can help you. All right. It is now my pleasure to welcome Mr. Shiraz Dalmir, Community Relations Manager of FortisBC, who's our presenting sponsor, to come forward for his remarks. And I promised Shiraz I would embarrass him because we've known each other for years. And so Shiraz, you're like a fine wine, always getting better with time. Come on up.
Okay, with a welcome like that, I'm going to have to live up to that somehow or another. I'll try not to age instantly during my speech. How's that? Thank you, Jocelyn. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to first acknowledge that I'm speaking here today on the traditional territories of the Katzie, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and other Coast Salish peoples. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Shiraz Dalmir. I'm Manager Community Relations at FortisBC for the Lower Mainland. My team and I work with many of you to ensure that residents and businesses across Surrey and White Rock continue to receive the energy they depend on every day. FortisBC's head office is also located here in this great city. Many of our nearly 1,000 employees call Surrey home, where we live, work, and play. So we have a very special relationship and connection with the city of Surrey. As a company, we are committed to being active and engaged members of the communities we serve. This means investing not just in energy infrastructure, but also in the people and the organizations that contribute to the well-being of British Columbians. FortisBC is the province's largest energy provider. We have a critical role to play in helping shape our province's lower carbon energy future by providing energy safely, reliably, and affordably with an eye on economic growth. That's why we're constantly looking for innovative ways we can help our customers reduce overall emissions practically and affordably. That's also why we're working hard to increase the supply of renewable and low carbon gases. FortisBC is the first energy utility in North America to automatically designate renewable natural gas, or RNG as we call it, to our customers. In July 2025, most gas customers had 3% of their natural gas use designated as RNG, allowing them to play a role in helping to help reduce overall GHG emissions. We work with farms, landfills, energy companies, and municipalities to capture and upgrade biogas to its core component, methane, which would otherwise be released into atmosphere or flared, in order to create RNG for our customers. One of the most impactful examples of these projects is happening right here in Surrey, our partnership with the city's Surrey Biofuel Facility, located in Port Kells. The Surrey Biofuel Facility converts organic waste into renewable natural gas and high-quality compost using state-of-the-art technology. The RNG produced is then used to power the city's waste collection trucks, operations vehicle fleets, and feeds the city's district energy system. My colleague, Phil Horacek, will go into more detail regarding additional FortisBC lower carbon transportation initiatives in the upcoming panel discussion. On behalf of FortisBC, I'd like to thank the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade for hosting this wonderful event. And I'd like to congratulate all of the nominees for their innovative projects that we're going to hear about today. Thank you for your time and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Shiraz. All right, now we have a video message to share from Canada's Minister of Environment and Climate Change, the Honourable Julie Debrusin. Please turn your attention to the screen.
Hello, I'm joining you today from the National Capital Region on the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. I'd like to thank the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade for inviting me to speak today. Climate change is no longer a distant threat, but a current reality. In recent years, we've seen wildfires, floods, and extreme heat disrupt communities, supply chains, and businesses. The impacts are real, and they come with real costs. At the same time, the global economy is changing quickly. Countries and companies are investing in clean technologies and transitioning to more sustainable practices. Climate action as an economic opportunity, and Canada has a choice. We can lead or we can risk being left behind. That's why Canada is investing in clean technology and infrastructure that is growing our economy while lowering our emissions. And many of these investments are happening in British Columbia, like how, with federal support, BC Hydro is electrifying infrastructure across the province. This will stimulate local construction, create jobs, and support long-term business savings by enabling the use of reliable, clean energy to produce goods for the domestic and international markets. With these kinds of investments, we're building a climate-competitive economy for the future. But the government can't do this alone. Your partnership is critical. Leaders and entrepreneurs and community builders like all of you here today are helping shape Canada's path forward and are an essential part of our success. Working together, we can make Canada a leader in supplying the world with clean energy, technologies, and expertise. I look forward to working with all of you to build a resilient, competitive, and sustainable economy for generations to come in Surrey, White Rock, and Canada.
Wonderful. I certainly appreciate the minister's insightful message on the federal government's support for clean tech industries, many of which are thriving right here in Surrey and White Rock. To tell us more about the innovative environmental initiatives the City of Surrey is undertaking, it's my pleasure to welcome the Mayor of Surrey, Her Worship, Brenda, to the stage.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is really great to be here. Not great to follow Shiraz, though, because stole a lot of what I was going to say, Shiraz. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, it's really lovely to be here. I want to start by thanking the Board of Trade for bringing people together around sustainability and innovation, exactly what we need to keep moving forward. And I want to also congratulate this year's finalists. So across every sector and of every size, you will prove that sustainability isn't separate from business success. It's actually a part of that very success. And at the City of Surrey, we know that sustainability goes hand in hand with innovation. Cities are at the front lines of both climate action and building strong local economies. They are, in fact, at the heart of everything we do, and in fact, at the heart of what is the GDP of this country. We are investing in projects that shrink our environmental footprint every single day and give innovators a space to try out those new ideas. So, and as Shiraz so gratefully said it before I get to say it, here's just a few ways that Surrey is putting that into action. And the Surrey Biofuel Facility is the first of its kind in North America. We are so very, very proud of it. I can tell you that people come from all over, not only Canada, but come from Europe to look at Surrey's biofuel project. It turns organic waste into renewable natural gas and high-quality compost using state-of-the-art technology. A big part of that is making sure that it fit. This isn't in my notes, but I'm going to tell you this anyway. A big part of that is making sure that it doesn't stink to high heaven, because it sounds like a little thing, but it's huge, because controlling that air quality that comes out of it is really important. Nobody wants to live in a city where it is it has that smell, and we've been able to manage that, but it took a lot of work getting there. Every year it processes waste from over 150,000 Surrey households, local businesses, and even other municipalities, turning waste into value. There is still room at the Surrey Biofuel Facility, so we're doing really well, and we can expand what we have there now. The renewable natural gas fuels the city's operations and waste collection vehicles, and it helps to cut emissions. The compost is used across Surrey to enrich our parks, our gardens, and our green spaces. They take they didn't put this again in the notes, but I'm going to tell you. They take a fluid that they get from the biofuel, and they have to water it way, way, way down because it's so strong. But that's what we use to fertilize our parks, and it's amazing. Beyond these projects, the city actively supports innovation, helps local businesses develop and improve their ideas, and our Urban Technology Test Lab is a program that lets companies field test innovation in real-world conditions. The Test Lab supports innovations from clean tech and agri-tech to robotics and transportation. Companies can pilot their projects, get input from city staff and residents, and refine projects before they go to market. So if you haven't heard of it yet, reach out to Invest Surrey, a great starting point for anyone testing new ideas locally. We're also taking steps in our day-to-day operations to build a greener city. Earlier this year, Council approved new dump trucks powered by compressed natural gas. That's pretty cool. Surrey has also been named a Tree City of the World for the 6th year in a row, showing our commitment to growing and caring for our urban forest. There are so many community events, but the ones like the Environmental Extravaganza is now in its 28th year. That is called Party for the Planet. It's BC's largest Earth Day celebration, helping people of all ages get involved, and they do. It's a wonderful event. I hope you can get there next year. They remind us that the environmental innovation isn't just about labs or big projects. It's happening right in our neighborhoods every day. All of this work reinforces a simple truth. Environmental stewardship must be woven into everyday fabric of our city's building. And that's why today's celebration is so very important, so thank you for doing that. The companies and organizations being honored are showing their leadership, ingenuity, and commitment to our province, to our city, and our country. They are proof that sustainability and economic success are not only compatible, they are inseparable. So once again, congratulations to all the finalists, and thank you for the important work that you're doing. And thank you to the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade for hosting this event. We look forward to continuing to work with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Locke. Now let's get started with our panel of speakers. I hope they will inspire you with ways you can incorporate environmentally friendly initiatives into your own business. Now, we were going to have the speakers come up on the stage while we did all the presentations, but I'm changing it up. Don't tell Heather, she'll get mad. Okay, so first I'm going to have Adeel Zafar, the director of SFU's School of Sustainable Energy Engineering, come on up. I'm going to go sit down, relax, while you talk to us, and then we'll switch it up and Phil will come on up and I'll introduce him then. Okay.
Thank you, Jocelyn. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you very much to the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade for creating this opportunity for an interesting conversation. I would like to acknowledge that we are on traditional unceded territory of a number of First Nations here. It includes Semiahmoo, Ketsi, Coquitlam, Kikait, Kwantlen, and Tsawwassen First Nations. And at SFU, we're not just repeating these as a pro forma description, but we are actually actively working with many of these First Nations. I would particularly identify both Ketsi and Tsawwassen First Nations, where we are in active conversations with them. So I was asked to talk about innovations, environmental ones, and I immediately thought of clean tech. And because I'm biased, being the school I'm in sustainable energy engineering, I immediately gravitated towards energy as a focal area. So please bear with me as we go through these few thoughts in how energy plugs into the whole notion of environmental sustainability. So the first thing I did, this was about a month ago, I asked ChatGPT, what are the cross linkages between sustainability and energy? And I got this image on the left-hand side. And so I said, yeah, here you go. Here's the nice package of energy being connecting with mobility, digital systems, industry, food and water, light and comfort. And I said, yeah, that's very good. So I posed this image to my students in my class and said, can you improve on this list? And I got the list on the right-hand side. So you have a much longer list, even including rest and recreation, culture, logistics and transportation. Somebody actually even also mentioned defense, but I'll leave that out for now. So you can actually beat the AI on its own game and actually have students come up with very smart answers that ChatGPT couldn't think of. Anyway, so this is a kind of a preamble to talk about where the needs are for investments, particularly as we get into these technology innovations. So this is kind of my preamble to get into some key points. So we know that we need some profound changes to how energy is created, managed, utilized. And so the global energy system in the next 25 to 30 years needs to see some fairly drastic changes. We also need to make sure that that transition doesn't come with a lot of pain. And one of those is to make sure that the fossil fuel sector doesn't suffer at the hands of renewable ones. So at the moment, we know globally there's about 65 million jobs that are associated with fossil fuels. So that's not a trivial number. And so we have to think about how that transition takes place, and addressing skill gaps becomes a fairly consistent message all the way across. You need physical infrastructure on upgrades, and you need to have these structures be more resilient to the kind of changes that we are seeing. So to echo the point that was made earlier, that climate change is a reality for today, and so we need to start to adapt our infrastructure. So again, from the energy lens, and I know there's a lot more that goes into resilient infrastructure, but things like having decentralized power grids. And I was moderating a panel in downtown 2 months ago, and the energy leaders in BC are constantly talking about how we look at these microgrids, how we connect better. And I think some of these conversations have been further amplified by what's happening south of the border. And so now there's an increased impetus for us being more self-reliant. Shipping routes for hydrogen, which is actually one of the major stumbling blocks at the moment. And we also need to think about some really diverse solutions for storing energy. So while we can generate energy, particularly renewable type, you need to be able to store it so that you can use it as and when you need it. And finally, you need lots of institutional collaborations, and I'm hoping that will lead to a few, as a result of these conversations here. And certainly, I think the coordination between the academic and research institutions and industry is fairly central to these collaborations. So what are some of the changes we hope to get out of these innovations in general and the collaborations I just alluded to? So the most obvious one is to enhance and increase how we consume our energy, okay? So the share of renewables obviously is going up, and it's increased, and it's actually, the momentum is accelerating as we go in terms of transition from more traditional or fossil fuels towards renewables. But that has to come also with integration with your energy systems. You have to increase your storage capacity. So those are the kind of things that we hope will start to materialize as a result of some of these innovations. Use of EVs we know is growing, and that's causing some anxiety amongst energy producers in particular, that when we go to over 1 billion EVs globally, how's the energy situation going to be managed? And similarly, for residential heating and cooling, which is about slightly more than a quarter of the energy consumed on a global scale. It's slightly higher here in BC. So how do we make some smart choices? We also hope that there's brand new technological developments, and some we see right on the horizon, some sort of around the curve, Green hydrogen holds a lot of promise. Similarly, carbon dioxide capture from air is another one, and this is something, again, a BC-made solution is there out in the market, and we can talk more about it if there's time. And finally, there's need for innovation in some of the really challenging sectors where things are not so easy to change around. So circular economy, and I think what the Honorable Mayor talked about is a perfect example of what circular bioeconomy looks like. And so there's no emissions to the environment really in that sense. And we also need to decarbonize the energy sector. And again, that applies more to fossil fuel, but again, it's right across the board. We need to think about emissions. We need to retool how transportation, shipping, freight, all of that takes place. And I'll give you an example in a second and how that can be done. And finally, some of the main emitters of greenhouse gases, the industries like iron and steel, cement, and petrochemicals, they need to be fundamentally reconceived. We're not going to get rid of them, but you need to reconceive how they link up. So I thought I would give you a little bit of insight on what some of the interesting things are happening across the board, and our school is right across the street here. So this is some of the things our colleagues in our school are working on. In terms of energy generation, we're looking at some really interesting renewable technologies. Now you can 3D print solar panels that are very flexible. They look like a plastic sheet, so you can just slap them on any window, and that becomes your energy generating unit. We also are looking at microgrids, and like I said, there's a lot of interest in the power generation and power supply sector to talk about how these microgrids are managed, and they become an obvious choice for remote and distant communities, but actually even in dense urban settings, these microgrids are getting a lot of attention, and this is something we're working on. I'd mentioned energy storage as an example earlier on, and there's things like looking at EV batteries and being able to get you a much more accurate read of the health of your battery at any given time. So that's one part of the solution, and we're also looking at the other part, which is that when your EV battery goes to about 80% of its capacity, that's no longer usable. And we're now looking at second life. So the battery still has capacity, but it can be used in urban settings for battery storage. And we're also developing some innovative materials that will become sort of the backbone of these new storage solutions. Energy consumption, so you have to also look at the other end and how that gets improved. I'd mentioned some of the innovative ways, and long-haul trucking, I think, is an interesting one, which is still very much reliant on trucking. Despite whatever Tesla might be designing, you still need to think through. And what we are working on is an engine that can burn both hydrogen and diesel alternatively. So that would solve the long-haul trucking problem. Clean transportation and also resilient and efficient buildings is something that we're quite heavily focused on. And this is the last slide, and I'll leave you with this, because I was also asked to talk a little bit about how these collaboration and partnerships can actually work. So here are some examples. You can, if you're a technology developer or provider, we can develop these partnerships where you can test these with some state-of-the-art technology that we have available. We also have really world-class laboratories which are available in both our mechatronics school and the Sustainable Energy Engineering School. And we have fairly well-defined mechanisms for managing IP and facilitating startups. And actually, many of our faculty members are precisely involved in doing that. You can also troubleshoot through capstone projects, and these are like limited 8-month window projects where we let a team of students go at a problem and try to come out with an engineering design. So if you can look at the bottom, so we've worked with Hyfluence to have an automated testing system for hydrogen leakages. We work with a Toronto-based company called Velocity to use solar panels for charging e-bikes. And we worked with General Fusion, which is a nuclear energy company based here in Lower Mainland, to talk about how the magnetic fields in a plasma injection system works. And don't ask me how it works, but I know our students were much more brilliant than me, and they were able to figure that out. And we also have talent that can be engaged through co-op placements with a number of industrial partners, and we do that constantly. And again, these can be 4 or 8 month placements. And it becomes kind of a recruitment tool, so you get to know the person working in your environment before you want to hire them and make them work for your company. Okay, I'll stop here and pass back to Jocelyn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adeel. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Phil Horacek, Director of Low Carbon Transportation with FortisBC. Welcome, Phil.
I aspire to be as articulate as Zafar there while winging it. I got to bring paper with me here. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Phil Horacek. I'm responsible for leveraging FortisBC's growing portfolio of lower carbon energy for the transportation sector. It's a pleasure to be here today with the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade, amongst so many leaders who care deeply about the future of our communities, our economy, and our environment. I'd first like to acknowledge that we're gathered on the traditional territories of the Katzie, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and other Coast Salish peoples. In British Columbia, FortisBC serves nearly 1.3 million customers across 135 communities, including 58 First Nation communities, and our combined infrastructure traverses across 150 traditional territories. FortisBC is a critical part of BC's energy landscape. We are an integrated energy provider with over 100 years of experience operating both gas and electric utilities, bringing a unique perspective to the energy dialogue in our province. As the largest energy provider in BC, we believe we have a role to play in a lower carbon energy future. The path to that lower carbon energy future runs directly through how we move goods and people, and FortisBC is proud to be helping paving that path. Since 2009, FortisBC has been actively supporting the transition to lower carbon fuels for medium and heavy-duty vehicles across BC. Our work is grounded in a simple but powerful idea that we can reduce emissions without compromising reliability, affordability, or performance. Over the past 15 years, we've partnered with fleet operators to displace diesel with compressed natural gas, or CNG, liquefied natural gas, LNG, and designated renewable gas, natural gas, RNG. These fuels offer significant life cycle emissions reductions and cost savings. Today, nearly 1,400 vehicles in BC are fueled with CNG, and 10 marine vessels, 6 from BC Ferries and 4 with Seaspan Ferries, are operating on LNG instead of higher carbon fuels like diesel. This transition has been made possible in part by our $331 million investment under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Regulation in 2017. That funding supported the adoption of natural gas vehicles and the development of refueling infrastructure across the province. Globally, natural gas transportation is well established with over 23 million vehicles in use. Here in BC, we're proud to offer fleet operators a flexible suite of lower carbon solutions, including CNG, LNG, RNG, and electricity, tailored to their operational needs. Let's talk about impact. In 2021, BC consumed 123 petajoules of diesel. If all of that were to be replaced with FortisBC CNG, it would generate approximately 1 million low-carbon fuel standard credits, each representing 1 ton of GHG emission savings. We look beyond tailpipe emissions to the life cycle carbon intensity of the fuels themselves. FortisBC's natural gas has a carbon intensity 17% lower than the 2025 diesel carbon intensity threshold under the BC Low Carbon Fuel Standard, while renewable natural gas is nearly 100% lower. RNG can help with reducing overall emissions. It's derived from biogas, as Shiraz said, produced by decomposing organic waste from landfills, agricultural runoff, and wastewater. That biogas is captured and upgraded to create a fuel that's compatible with existing CNG engines and infrastructure. Most of our customers can now designate all or part of their natural gas usage as RNG, making adoption seamless. We're expanding RNG availability with pilot projects planned for 2026 and beyond. The more RNG we acquire, the more of this low-carbon fuel becomes available to our customers. But our vision doesn't stop at natural gas. FortisBC is actively supporting the transition to battery electric vehicles, or BEVs, and researching hydrogen fueling for long-range, high-performance applications. Our strategy includes supporting fleet operators and exploring BEVs by offering financial assistance, site assessments, and infrastructure upgrades. We're also piloting advanced technologies like vehicle-to-grid integration and energy storage solutions to mitigate impacts on the grid and ensure reliable charging access. On the hydrogen front, we're exploring low-carbon production methods like electrolysis, powered by clean electricity, and natural gas pyrolysis, which captures carbon as solid graphite rather than releasing it into the atmosphere. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles offer longer ranges, faster refueling, and superior cold weather performance, making them ideal for Class 8 trucks, marine vessels, and rail. To support these transitions, FortisBC has also created the Clean Growth Innovation Fund. Since 2020, this fund has invested more than $20 million in over 65 projects that advance renewable natural gas, hydrogen, carbon capture, and efficiency solutions. We've just renewed the fund for the next 3 years with another $5.5 million per year to support Made in BC innovation. One example, close to home for today's panel, is our support for Simon Fraser University's Clean Hydrogen Hub, which is helping to build the research and partnerships needed to unlock hydrogen's potential in BC. Through collaborations like these with universities, technology companies, and small and medium-sized businesses, the fund helps turn promising ideas into practical solutions that reduce emissions while keeping energy reliable and affordable for British Columbians. Innovation doesn't happen in isolation. As I said, FortisBC works closely with fleet operators, manufacturers, post-secondary institutions, and industry leaders to foster technology adoption and share best practices. We're proud to collaborate on advanced engine technologies like the Cummins X15N, the first heavy-duty engine to offer diesel-level performance with CNG-level total cost of ownership and carbon benefits. Affordability is key. We recognize that the transition to lower carbon transportation must be accessible. That's why we're leveraging cost-saving technologies, incentives, and scalable infrastructure to support our customers in every step of the way. FortisBC is a trusted partner for essential service providers and schedule-sensitive operations. Our reliable fueling solutions help keep fleets on the road, ferries on the water, and goods moving throughout BC. We're proud of the progress we've made, and we're just getting started. Together, we can build a transportation system that's lower carbon and more resilient. Thank you for your time today. I look forward to the panel discussion.
Thank you, Phil. And Adeel, could you join us on stage? I'll now call for questions from the audience. If you have a question, please go to the microphone here at the front in the middle and state your name, the company that you're with, and then ask your brief question. I know here in Surrey and White Rock, we get a little excited sometimes, so we're going to go with short. Okay.
Okay, I have a question here.
Oh, just give me 1 minute.
Sorry.
I love it. We're so excited. Don't even have my mic on yet. All right, we're so excited. Can you let me ask the first question, though? Is that okay? Okay. All right. It's good to know you're here. You're ready. Okay. The first question I had on my list was recognizing that most businesses in Canada actually are small to mid-size. How can they tap into your work on environmental innovation? Are there partnership or funding opportunities to work with you?
Sure. All right, it works. So as I mentioned, FortisBC has the Clean Growth Innovation Fund, and we have quite a diversity of projects that we support, but the focus is on sustainability from all facets, from what we do with the carbon that we're currently generating to reducing the amount of that carbon. So we've got a number of avenues. So that's on the kind of innovation fund side, but of course in the normal course of business, we work quite closely with small and medium-sized businesses from a revenue standpoint, so maybe not funding necessarily, but we rely on these every single day to achieve our objectives.
Yeah, and I think, in terms of how the industry-academia interactions work, we actually work across the whole spectrum. So starting with the startups and going all the way up to large multinational corporations. So to answer your question specifically around small and medium enterprises, I think I did indicate that there is a possibility to use even small research grants, take them to MyTex, which doubles the funding that is available. And that allows you to test out some sort of market-ready concepts. And if you step a level lower and you want to really ask some fundamental questions, we have these, what I call capstone projects. So these are teams of projects trying to solve your problem. Typically, it doesn't cost the industry anything at all. So if you are a small and medium industry and you have a problem that you think can lead to an engineering solution, we're very happy to talk to. And we actually have a pipeline of projects that we are constantly creating for our students to pick and choose from.
Exciting. I like that. Okay, sir, you're up. Are you ready? There's a microphone right behind you. You can introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and ask your question.
Oh, hi, good afternoon. I'm Jack Seacon. I'm an engineer, and then I work in management systems, including the environmental one. So my question is more like a philosophical, that from a conventional wisdom of transitioning from fossil fuels to all the green energy, clean energy. But down south, we have a friend, Mr. Trump, right? He can turn that tide overnight. Even my favorite Prime Minister, Mark Carney, 2 weeks ago, he used the word competitive environmental protection. He used the word competitive. So how do you guys, with your guys in your role, in your shoes, you being the strategic thinkers, right? And you set the stage, you prioritize. How do you go around these ups and downs, which could throw a monkey wrench into the bigger scheme of the things?
Thank you. May I?
Yes.
That's a very interesting question. And I think let me preface by saying that when you look at the overall global energy generation component, about 60% of that at the moment is fossil fuel. So as I was trying to say earlier, the transition from fossil fuel to renewables isn't going to happen overnight, and it's going to take a lot of effort. One thing which is very clear, that in the last decade or so, not only is the trajectory in the direction of going and getting more renewables and more innovative options on the board for energy generation, but you're seeing this transition over and the weight of investments being shifted. So in the last figure we had for 2024, about $1.5 trillion was invested towards renewable globally. I know that's maybe in the larger scheme of things, it's still a small drop in the bucket, but that's just the R&D component. And we see that increasing. I think we need about $6 trillion a year. That's the projection. So we're still shy of what is needed. The way I see it, folks like Mr. Trump and others, they are kind of a blip in the grand arc of which way the history is moving. So even if you have a small dip for 3-4 years, you'll see that other jurisdictions are still moving ahead. Even in the US, many of the states, largest states like California, they're going to still continue to move in the trajectory that they are. So regardless of what happens. And we've seen this before, like during the 2 terms of the Bush administration, we also saw pulling back from a lot of the research on renewables and energy technology innovations. So, and then it bounced back and it still kept going. So I'm not concerned that it's going to change that trajectory. And the other corollary, just to say it for the sake of clarity, fossil fuels aren't going to go away completely in maybe at least in my lifetime. I think they will still be there just because of the energy density they bring. So there's nothing at the moment that can replace diesel, for example, for long-haul trucking. And that's kind of, we're trying to think outside the box and say, okay, don't change the trucks, change the fuel that you burn. So hydrogen and as Phil was saying, compressed natural gas, those kind of solutions can come forward.
If I could just add to that, I mean, the simple answer is you stay the course. If you react to every policy shift that happens, whether it's in the US or otherwise, you're going to end up with whiplash. And again, as Zafar said, this is a long-term view that humanity needs to take, because sustainability is no longer optional, I think, as you heard from the federal minister talk about what we're facing today through wildfires and all the other impacts. This is something that has to happen regardless.
So just a brief follow-up. At the end of the day, you still have to run a business and make some profits, right? In spite of all this.
The comment is, in spite of all this, we still have to run a business and make a profit. And I think that that's where, we've been talking about trade a lot. And my advice to our business community has been to diversify your trade portfolio, recognizing the U.S. is still important and will always be an important trade partner, but we should now use this opportunity to look elsewhere. Europe is doing a lot of cool things with green energy. Are we learning anything from other parts of the world that we're trying to apply here? I know they're coming to us to see the biofuel facility, but what are we learning from the rest of the world?
Well, I can give an example. I think Germany is a good one, where in 2012, right all of a sudden they decided that they didn't want nuclear energy anymore. So this was 1 year after when there was a major earthquake in Japan in 2011, and that caused the nuclear disaster that we're all familiar with. And what happened with Germany was that they were on a 10-year trajectory to reduce their reliance on nuclear energy. And they decided overnight that we're going to flip the switch and we're just going to stop it right away. And that caused a lot of short-term pain for them. And that pain was because renewables are, in most cases, solar or wind or wave energy. They're not, you can flip on a switch and get it when you want and flip the switch off when you don't need it. You have to find ways of storing. And Germany didn't have that storage capacity right off the board. And it took them a lot of time. And like I said, there was pain in terms of how energy was supplied to industries for a while. So I think that's one lesson that we can have, that these kind of transitions have to be planned out well in advance. You need to have a lot of thought put into how the energy is managed, how it's stored over time, and how you cope with the changes in demand over time. So not to go headlong into a transition without really thinking through all the aspects of it.
I'd just like to add to that. I think it comes down, bringing it back to the event today, innovation. And innovation doesn't really have borders. Technology that's developed elsewhere in the world can get deployed here. I think we're quite fortunate here in BC and Canada in general that there is a lot of innovation here, and it's happening in the small and medium-sized businesses as well as the larger ones. But if we can leverage made-at-home technology, certainly we do so. But if there's something that's very, very compelling being developed elsewhere in the world, I think that'll find its way here as well.
Great, thank you. Any more questions from the audience? If you could make your way up to the microphone, and then I'll ask a question in the meantime. So what innovations, speaking of, are most immediately relevant for smaller businesses looking to cut costs, emissions, to do their part? What are the things that they could do to apply innovation at a small scale? You guys think about this all day, so we need all the good ideas.
Well, I think there is, the first bit is the recognition that the transition is necessary. And I think, as you said a moment ago, you have to diversify and you have to think about what different options are. And sometimes the brainstorming conversations can lead you to endpoints which you maybe didn't even think about before. And those are the kind of conversations that do happen. And I don't mean to be tooting my own horn, but academia are the places where some of those conversations happen, because you're being provided a neutral platform which is not actually driven by any hidden agendas. And by having those conversations, you can actually discover where are some innovations that can help you overcome what might be your current pain points.
I would say, when we think of innovation, we typically immediately gravitate towards the big things, the big inventions, the big discoveries. But I think we also need to recognize innovation can happen in tiny little steps as well. And so as businesses here and beyond think about what innovation means to their business, don't just think about the technology or the next big thing, but think about kind of the little things, and also just kind of be aware. Government, utilities, other businesses offer resources and education and programs and funding and all these different things. So just, to be receptive to those and look for that in, as it relates to your business. And obviously there's quite a diversity of that. And just being receptive to that out there, and just understanding what that means for your business or your product or your service.
What did I say about the alarms, everybody? It happens every time. Okay, please introduce yourself at the microphone.
Hi panel, this is Prateek and I'm from TLD, Division of London Drugs. And my question in front of you is, we always talk about carbon zero emission and stuff, but the discussion about e-waste management is buried somewhere. So I would say, what palette as a body we are bringing up for e-waste management, specifically like lithium batteries end of life, or lead acid batteries which have going to extinct in coming years. So no discussion is going around that. So what is going to happen with so much of e-waste that we have around the world, around North America?
Oh, e-waste is a huge problem. And you just mentioned one part which deals with batteries. There's also electronics and materials. And there's actually lots of precious metals which are embedded inside our electronics. It's just that the way they're designed, it's very expensive to take them out. So you can take a computer motherboard and get gold out of it, but you'll spend so much time that it's not even worth it to get that tiny bit of gold out. So e-waste is a global problem, has been looked at, I would say, over the last 15 to 20 years quite intensively. And the focus has been more on the electronic sides and how to design electronics so that you're able to extract those precious metals and other materials up front, and not to use 10 different types of plastics in a piece of equipment that they're very difficult to recycle. The other bit that you mentioned about batteries is actually interesting. So I'm not sure I'll buy the argument that lead acid batteries are going extinct, because there's continuous innovation, but there's also continuous effort to look at how they get used. And I gave the example of lithium-ion batteries that when they don't have enough juice to power your car and have your Tesla go very fast, they still have a second life option. And the way we are conceptualizing is that you can actually create a market for these secondhand batteries, which means that if you've had your Tesla or whatever EV, I drive a Mustang Mach-E, so it's different than Tesla. I've stayed away from Teslas, but the point is, when it's time, maybe 20 years down the road, to replace your batteries, you can actually get the residual value of your batteries back, and that they find a second home in some residential energy storage. and you're getting some money that will go towards actually replacing those batteries. So I think it's, again, you can start to think of different ways on how batteries are used, and there's new types of liquid batteries which are coming on, we don't have EV applications, but they have great residential applications, and they're much more environmentally friendly because you don't have to go through mining for lithium to get those liquid batteries working. So in a nutshell, I agree with you, e-waste is a huge problem, and the chunk of e-waste problem that you're pointing to, that is one that I think we can get a better handle on and solve it.
Can you follow up, Phil, with the carbon capture? Tell us a little, I know you talked about it, but for those of us that are not experts in this area, tell us why this matters.
Carbon capture is a little bit tricky, and that boils down to the storage part. Traditional technology, if you can call it that, because it's still fairly recent, requires a particular geology to be able to stuff that carbon somewhere in a reliable way. And BC doesn't necessarily have that geology in the places where it's perhaps needed. Our geology has storage potential up in the northeast and then perhaps a little bit in the southern part. And so right now we're not well positioned in terms of investments in technology and that being enabled here in BC, but I hope that changes. I think Alberta's leading in that sense with their Wolf Midstream trunk line, the CO2 trunk line. It's first in Canada, of course, and something to watch.
Could I jump in on this one,
please do.
Yeah, I think I mentioned in the passing in terms of carbon capture, CO2 capture, and that's something that we're actively working on. But I like to use the example of this company called Carbon Engineering based out of Squamish, which is capturing CO2 out of air, and it's converting it into diesel. So they're trying to recover some of the costs. So again, it sounds a little bit counterintuitive that you're capturing carbon and you're again converting it into diesel, which gets burnt, and you have emissions going out. But in a way, the process is net zero. So you're capturing carbon to burn. So you're not adding new carbon into the atmosphere. So I think those are the kind of solutions. And actually, I know that they are getting a lot of traction in the US as well. Texas, for example, is very interested in the kind of solutions that they're developing. So yeah, I think thinking outside the box gives you some very interesting options.
Okay. What barriers, regulatory, financial, or cultural, are most pressing, and how do you think they can be overcome when we're looking at forward-facing, futuristic innovation and moving us in the right direction?
Do you want to have a go?
Sure. So the big one, and we saw this in the BC election, I think, is affordability. I think to date, sustainability perhaps was somewhat synonymous with being expensive, and it doesn't have to be that way. And that's, again, where innovation comes in. But it's also leveraging what we have today that might not be perfect, but that'll get us through kind of the next couple decades while that innovation catches up and some of the more impactful technologies are readied during that time to be able to be implemented. So, I mean, we can't think of things purely linearly, and we can't think of things as a moment in time. Everything is quite fluid, and things happen not sequentially, but in parallel. And so, of course, Fortis offers solutions today, lower carbon solutions that can reduce emissions today with that technology, and we're working hard to do that. But with an eye on more impactful technologies down the road. Electricity is obviously a huge, huge one. Hydrogen is showing a lot of potential, and there's so many more. We just don't have enough time. But there are opportunities to find kind of that perfect balance, and that's really what's needed, balance.
Okay. Can I do a time check? Kapil, what time is it? 107. Okay, we have time for one more quick question. If someone in the audience wants to make their way to the microphone, Dr. Greg.
Maybe I can add to
Oh, and
Bill's answer
okay, please do.
while you're walking up. So
I'm already here.
too fast for me. I was just going to add a couple of things in terms of roadblocks. I think regulations, you alluded to it. I think the problem in Canada is province by province regulatory differences, and I think that causes a lot of pain points for innovators that you have to get approvals across the board. And the ecosystem down south is a little bit more amenable. So I think hopefully in the current geopolitical situation with our neighbors down south, that will enable to break down some of these horizontal barriers across Canada. And the other one is investment. And again, I think we've worked really great with small and medium enterprises. And the moment you start to go beyond that, then you also draw attention from financial capital down south, which is great in a way, but that typically also takes away the innovation out from Canadian context into a U.S. context. So having that flow of capital is critical, and hopefully with these new projects that Mr. Carney is talking about, we'll wait and see how they play out, but that will help with the capital flow as well.
Thank you. Dr. Gray.
I should have taken a long, slow walk to the microphone. I'm not really here to ask you any questions. I'm here to make a comment. Basically, I'm going to sell the Surrey Board of Trade and boards of trade in general. I'm a toxicologist, aquatic toxicologist by background, but I'm the past chair of the Surrey Board of Trade, past chair of the BC Chamber of Commerce, director on the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and I also had the international and industry trade team for Surrey. So I had a lot of experience talking and listening to businesses, and kind of all these conversations, they always come back to the same thing. How do we know what to do? How do we know where the research is going? How's it going to impact the economy? Our politicians, are they educated? Do they understand? Because they're the ones that are setting the policies and the regulations. You can vote in or out, but how do we make sure they know what's going on? That's our job. And that's what the Surrey Board of Trade's job is. We need businesses to get engaged in these conversations, which are good. So educate yourself. Academics and industry people come and tell us what's important. We listen to it, but then you go back to your business and you think, yeah, well, that's great, but today I don't know anything. I don't know where to go. When you join a board of trade, especially if you're on a trade team or industry team like that, you have a voice, and your voice can say, this is a problem in my business or my sector or my industry, and government needs to make a change. They need to do something to change something, to make it happen, whether it's Trump or anything else. And so I would encourage you to really understand what I'm saying, because one of the biggest assets that we have as a Board of Trade, and we do this all the time, and most people don't know, is on your behalf, whether it's at the federal level or at the provincial level, chambers come together and they develop policies, policy positions, and then they go and articulate it at their AGMs. And the policies that get passed, so one individual can bring an idea forward, those policies then become the official word of the provincial chamber or the Canadian chamber, and that goes into a book, and the book goes to government, and it says 200,000 businesses in Canada want you to fix this thing or change this thing. You have a voice. You have the ability to make change, but you have to activate it. It's like a gym membership. Great to have a gym membership, but unless you use it and do something with it, it doesn't do much. So you as members and people considering membership, that's where your strength lies. Get involved, come and listen, get educated, and then put it into action. Bring it to the Board of Trade, tell us what's important, tell us where your rubs are, where the issues are. We'll develop a policy, and then we'll go and debate it. Thanks, Jocelyn.
Thanks, Dr. Greg. I didn't even pay him to say all that. So, I know we've been talking about a lot of really high-level intellectual, big company leader ideas, but we are going to have our awards program, and we'll see what businesses of all sizes are doing. And I really hope that everyone gets inspired by what they hear today. We can't all go and build a hydrogen fuel cell, although my husband can because he's a
hydrogen fuel cell engineer. That's why I just pretend I know what I'm talking about. So I thank you both for your time, your energy, and your intellectual comments, making us all know a little bit more today. Can I have a round of applause for our panel?